Welcome back to this week's episode of Tort Talk. It is Jon and Marc here with Joe Fantini. It might be cooling down outside, but the world of mass torts is heating up. We have a lot of updates to bring you today, and we have a very, very big update going on in Roundup. Jon, do you want to get into it?
Thanks for joining us, Joe. We had a big announcement last week. We've been waiting for months. Finally have a ruling from the Supreme Court about the Roundup Preemption appeal. What did the court decide, and what should we expect moving forward?
Like you mentioned, Jon, we just heard from the Supreme Court late last week, and they decided to take up the Roundup Preemption appeal. Basically, we had a split between some of the courts on whether or not state failure to warn claims were preempted. Basically, what this means is Bayer and Monsanto were arguing they weren't able to update the label to add allegations that it could potentially cause cancer because the label had already been approved. We saw this previously, and we run into it in every drug case where they're alleging the FDA approved the label. So now that we know the case is going up to the Supreme Court, it's going to be argued, and we're going to have a decision before the end of the term this summer. So before the end of June, we'll have a decision from the court, and then the cases are all still going forward. I know you had Seth on before. Even if we end up losing on this failure to warn claim, the cases still go on. We still have the negligence. We have the design defect, breach of warranty. We have lots of claims that survive. But this is definitely a win for Bayer and Monsanto, something they've been trying to get for more than 5 years, and they finally got it.
It's definitely not a positive sign for plaintiffs, but this isn't a catastrophic decision by any sense of the word. So good that we're making progress, though, and we should have some more progress throughout this year. That being said, we're currently in the midst of an onslaught of trials. Rarely do we have multiple mass tort trials ongoing at the same time, but we do have that right now. Let's go into each of these individual trials, and you can give the audience updates on what's going on, starting with the Uber Sex Abuse MDL.
Right, so the Uber MDL trial, this is going on in federal court in Arizona. We're about a week into the trial. As you remember, in the first trial, it was on the state court level. We ended up losing. This case, we have really good facts, a really sympathetic plaintiff. We learned a little bit from that first trial where the jury said that Uber was negligent, but their negligence didn't cause the injury to the plaintiff. So here we're really focusing on what did Uber know, what did it do with all these reports of the abuse or the assault, and that the evidence is out there that almost every 8 minutes there's an allegations of abuse with an Uber rider. So we're really hopeful in this trial. Should have a verdict sometime around the end of January.
Yeah, and we're also hearing that Lyft cases may get consolidated as well. There's a path to an MDL for those that should be decided coming up here shortly.
Yep, that's true. So a lot of action in the rideshare litigation front.
Another one, talcum powder. We have a trial starting in the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas against J&J. What's going on there?
Yeah, so a court case, a trial going on in my hometown here, Philadelphia. A great verdict, a great venue, rather, for the plaintiffs. We're hoping for a great verdict, but this is how we sometimes have state consolidated actions ongoing while there's an MDL. So the focus is on the MDL with 65,000 cases pending. We heard about a verdict out of California State Court, and now here we are in Philly State Court as well. This is an ovarian cancer case, so we're going to be paying attention to this. The trial is going to be very science heavy. Looks like we'll end up having about a month-long trial here. The jury selection's just starting, so we'll keep you guys updated as we move forward. But this is a very good venue for the plaintiffs. It's a strong case. We're hoping we can get another win here and put some more pressure on J&J.
Is there a follow-up MDL hearing coming up for talcum powder that's going to be able to respond to what goes on in this Philadelphia trial?
Yeah, so the next thing we're waiting for in the MDL is to have an MDL trial. You know, even though there's different standards and different laws, each of the courts are kind of moving at different speeds. So what we want to do as plaintiffs is get as many trials as possible. So Philly, Cali, the MDL, even in New Jersey State Court, to apply the pressure. This ruling in the Philadelphia court or California really doesn't have any binding effect on the MDL, but it definitely applies the pressure because we're dealing with the same parties.
The first Bellwether trial kicks off this week in a litigation that really has been ongoing for a long, long time. What should we expect from this upcoming trial?
Like you mentioned, John, this MDL has been around since 2020, so we're almost 6 years into it. We're out in the Northern District of Georgia. We have about 3,500 cases pending. We haven't talked a lot about this litigation, but Paragard IUD is a form of birth control. It's a T-shaped IUD that's implanted, and basically the allegations are that the T breaks off and then it comes implanted or embedded in the plaintiffs needing surgical removal. So we've had some similar cases in the past. Mirena IUD, very similar design. Those cases weren't as successful as we hoped, but now we're finally in front of the jury. We have the first trial kicking off in January, the next trial scheduled for March, and then a third one in May. So we love to see the trials stacked like that to keep the pressure on the defendants and hopefully get this case resolved before the end of the year.
Man, that's a big update. We haven't spoke about Paragard, I don't think at all yet on Tort Talks.
Yeah, we haven't talked much about it. Not a ton of activity there with the number of cases. Like I said, just above 3,500 right now, but definitely an important case. A lot of us who worked on Mirena before are familiar with it as well.
Moving on to the next trial, social media. Looking ahead, we have jury selection scheduled to begin next week in this widely watched trial. What are you looking for here, Joe?
Like you mentioned, everybody's talking about this trial. There's reports that Zuckerberg himself is going to be coming in and testifying. Just think about the spectacle surrounding that. What we're doing now and what we're seeing is there's arguments about what evidence can be presented, what information are the parties able to look into about the jurors. Some plaintiffs, we have concerns about the information in the background that Facebook or Google, the research they're going to do on the potential jurors right there, because they'll have all that information on their hands and we won't. But we're going through the standard pretrial process, arguing some motions, could be and probably will be the trial of the year. It's going to set the tone for not only the social media addiction, it's going to be the roadmap for the video game addiction, the online gambling. It's huge. So all eyes will definitely be on this case.
What venue is this going to be happening in?
This is going to be in California. So we have the MDL and the state court action, both venued out in California.
And this is in the MDL?
Yep.
We also saw a positive sign last week as Character AI wound up settling a handful of cases. I think Character AI was a defendant alongside Google. What could this mean for the social media addiction litigation?
Yeah, like you mentioned, I think the key takeaway was it's the similar type of allegations that we see in social media and video game addiction. Really interesting tidbit was that Google was also a named defendant, so they had a consent to settle and likely had to contribute some sort of funds towards a settlement, because you usually don't see defendants getting out for nothing. It wasn't an MDL. It hadn't got along that far, but similar allegations that they didn't do enough to put their rail guards in place to protect the minors. They knew about these problems and didn't do anything about it. It led these minors to having mental health issues. There were some allegations that they formed these weird relationships with the AI, and that caused all types of problems. So positive development that the case settled. We'll keep an eye if there's similar cases coming up, but like Marc mentioned, the trial of the year really is going to be that social media addiction case, and everybody's buzzing about that case.
Next week's edition of Tort Talk, we're going to be recording live at National Trial Lawyers Summit in Miami. Joe will be there alongside Marc and myself. If you want to come and meet with us, please feel free, reach out. We'll be there all day Monday and Tuesday recording, and we very much look forward to seeing our guests there, talk with us in person about what's going on in the legal marketing space, and answer any questions that you may have, whether it be about Tort Talk, Mass Torts, our podcasts, or any legal growth marketing. So please make sure you subscribe to our channel. You get updates every week on the best 10 minutes in Mass Torts here on Tort Talk. Thanks again for joining us, Joe.